While loops look innocuous, but they're one of the most dangerous things you can write in Python. One small mistake and your program will run forever. Granted, some programs we want to run forever, like a web service. But your program might run forever and not in a good way. But don't be afraid. While you're here, you'll learn advanced while loop control statements to tame these wild beasts. Let's go to the code.
One thing I like to use to test while loops in Python is the Python datetime class. From datetime, import datetime. And sure, we could increment some numbers in our while loop, check to see if we've reached a particular number yet, but why wouldn't we just use a for loop for that? Checking the actual time is much more exciting. And we can get the current time by calling datetime.now. And that gives us the current time as a datetime object. And we can get the seconds of that time, which is right there, by using .second. Okay, so let's make a simple while loop that waits for 2 seconds and then prints out some message. So we're going to make a variable wait until, and that's going to be equal to the current second plus 2. Then let's make a while loop while the current second is not equal to wait until, print still waiting. Finally, when we're done, print, let's make that an F string. We are at wait until seconds. Okay, let's run this. Okay, so what's going on here? Python is very fast, and this is going to quickly fill up our screen with the useless print statements while we're inside this while loop. So what do we do to fix this? Well, if we remove this print statement, this is going to break. There's an indentation error. There's nothing inside our while loop. And we could do some useless calculation like this, and that will technically work, but it's an awful waste of computational power, don't you think? So what we're going to do instead is use something called the pass statement. And what the pass statement says is, nothing to see here, move along. But it does preserve our indentation. And it's also a great thing to use as a placeholder. Say, if you're writing a function or a class definition and you don't want to fill it in yet, you can just write pass. Let's look at another way to write this using the break statement. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to write while true. Honestly, my heart skips a beat whenever I see while true in someone's code, but in this case, it's safe. We're going to make sure that it doesn't loop forever. We're going to say if datetime.now.second equals wait until. Let's print this here. And then we're going to write a break statement. And what this break statement does is break out of the current loop that it's in. So let's run this. Great. So the break statement goes up the lines of code, and it goes to the print, and it says, is this a loop? Nope. Then it goes up here. Is this a loop? Nope, it's an if statement. Is this a loop? Yes. And then it'll break out of this while statement and exit the loop. It's important to note that the break statement only breaks out of the first while loop that it encounters. So if I do this, let's change this to while loop. Okay, and run it. So what this is doing is it's printing we are at 14 seconds as long as this is true. And it's never breaking out of this outer loop. So we'll continue to break out of this while loop here, but then it loops around, sees the while true, and enters this all over again. Let me actually run or stop this code because that's just going to keep running forever. So it's important to know that the break statement only gets you out of a single while loop. Okay, and the final control statement for loops, that is continue. So continue skips any lines that follow it inside of the while loop. So if I take this original code up at top, and if I add a continue statement, you can see that this line will never print. This line down here under it will never print. Instead, it'll eventually exit the loop and print this statement down here. But this isn't a common usage of continue. Obviously, we could replace this entire thing with a pass statement more easily. Usually you see a continue statement used inside an if statement to prevent the code in the loop from executing if some condition is met. So let's just copy this. And let's change this to a while true again. And write if datetime.now.second is less than wait until continue, else break. So when this continue statement is hit, it skips everything else in the loop, which is this break statement. And as soon as this is no longer true, this statement right here is no longer true, the continue is no longer hit, and it goes to the break statement. Of course, this logic is basically the same as putting this check inside the while loop itself, or a check similar to it inside the while loop itself, and then exiting the while loop after 2 seconds.
And this is the big secret with continue and break. They're not technically logically necessary, but they can help you rearrange and write code more clearly for other programmers to read. So it's important to understand and be ready to whip them out depending on the situation.